Isn't it odd how much fatter a book gets when you've read it several times? As if something were left between the pages every time you read it. Feelings, thoughts, sounds, and smells. And then, when you look back at the book again many years later, you find yourself there too. A slightly younger self, slightly different, as if the book had preserved you like a pressed flower, both strange and familiar. So that was by Cornelia Funk. And we're going to have a book talk today. We haven't done that since we first started a couple years ago, and we thought it'd be fun to do it again. And I'm looking forward to that. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We missed last week because Carla was sick. Carla, I miss talking to you, and I'm glad we get a chance to catch up, you and me with each other some more, and with everybody else who is sharing this time with us. We're looking up a podcast for Christian women. How are you feeling?
I feel okay. It wasn't anything respiratory. It wasn't the flu. Just I don't even know exactly what it was. I have a doctor's
Yeah.
appointment today at 4:30. So whatever it is, we'll figure it out. It was just kind of weird. It was a couple of days after we arrived in Denver. So I didn't know if altitude had something to do with it, or I don't know. It could be a number of things. So nothing serious, I hope. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
nothing serious, but
Yeah. I
hopefully I'll find out
assumed
something.
I assumed it was the flu when you told me you were
Mhm.
sick, and then you were saying, like you just didn't feel good and having a hard time even getting up off the couch. And I thought, oh no, because I
Yeah.
know stuff that's going around seems to be knocking people out for a couple of weeks or more. So, but I'm
Yeah.
glad you'll get to go to the doctor and
Oh, I hate going to the doctor.
hopefully be
You
back to
know,
100% soon.
you know it's serious if I'm going to the doctor.
That's right. Yeah, you and I are kindred spirits in that way
Hmm.
also.
And I asked myself, what in the world are you afraid of? I mean, it's the doctor. They're helping you, but my blood pressure goes up. In fact, I have to take my blood pressure. I took it last night so that I could tell her today because I know when I get there it's going to be 160 over something. It just goes way up when I'm at the doctor's office. Can't help it.
What white coat syndrome.
Yeah, we have five. She finally understands now that it's not that way all the time. I keep a reading of it and I show it to her. But when I get there, she says, I feel like you're just one of those people that's it's elevated at the doctor's office. Like,
Yeah.
yes, because
Yes.
I'm a child.
So other than that, I know you've been traveling. Y'all went to Colorado for the short course at Bear Valley, and you just
Mhm.
got back
Last night.
last night. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you're still pooped, I'm sure. You were sick
yeah,
and traveling.
yeah. Well, so after our last recording, and then we had the weekend in Katy for the rodeo. So we
Mhm.
were there from Thursday afternoon until Saturday night, and so we came home on Sunday,
Mhm.
and it was a regular busy Sunday, and then we left again on Monday for Denver. So we've been gone basically for 2 weeks, and I always love being in Denver. It's just, some of our favorite people and the scenery and just
Mhm.
it's just
Snow. I saw
yeah,
you
it,
got
it
some
did
good bit of
snow.
snow while
I
you were
don't miss
there.
the snow. Don't
Yeah.
miss that. But also it comes along with the dry eyes and the
Mhm.
gunky nose and there's, all those things. But yeah, I was pretty knocked out for the better part of the first week. So that was not I didn't get to see people that I wanted to see. And I only got to go to chapel 2 or 3 different times, and I was hoping to be able to do more than that. But I mean, it was I was glad and thankful that I didn't have to be anywhere. Sometimes when
Yeah.
you are sick and you have to be somewhere, or you can't even think about getting up and going somewhere. And I didn't have to. So
Mhm.
so it was a good thing. And we did get to eat at Bojo's Pizza.
Of course. Was it the one in Idaho Springs?
No, we didn't go over there. We were with
What?
I know. We were with Wes and Terry driving around Evergreen in that area. So we went
Uh-huh.
to the one there.
Mm.
Not quite the same
No.
feel, but it was the same pizza. So
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
good stuff. Anyway,
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate, we posted about not sharing an episode last week because you were sick, and all the people that commented that they were praying for
yeah,
you
yeah,
was so thoughtful. So thanks to
sure.
everybody who did that and prayed for
Absolutely.
Carla. And even though you're not 100%, I'm grateful that you are willing to record this week. And
Yeah. Well, I missed you. I had to see you. How are you doing? Because you had
I'm
a
doing,
rough week.
yeah, I did. Yeah, we sold peaches her
Mhm.
beautiful, perfect, sweet, best ever Jersey cow. And it was one of those situations where, have you ever made an impulsive choice and then almost as soon as you did, you regretted it? That's
Mhm.
definitely what happened. And but it was a perfect storm of, like an overwhelm. That very weekend our basement flooded. We had a lot of flooding, rain and flooding in this
Yeah.
area and still do. It's crazy. But our basement flooded and we spent the whole day, you know, shot back in out water out of the basement. And then the next day, everything froze over, which led to a lot of complications in the milking
Yeah.
barn. And so it was just one of those things where I was like, just,
Mhm.
just exhausted, and made the decision in that moment, which is never a good idea. Never make big decisions when you're tired or frustrated. And so I already miss her and wish that I hadn't done that. But
Well, you said she's down the road, so you can see her.
she is down the road. She's the Emily Rock has her. She's Royalty Rock Farms, and I know she's going to take great care of her, and I'm grateful for that. And also, here's a little interesting tidbit. I kind of know kind of about it. I grieved the loss of Peaches. I cried all
Mhm.
day long,
Yeah.
and so that was Saturday. The very next day, I'm actually trying to focus on not looking like a complete ninny at worship,
Mhm.
because I felt like my eyelids were probably puffy and all from the day before. And I thought, this is so embarrassing that I got so distraught over this cow. Well, the next day, when I went to worship afterwards, all these Christian friends came up and said something to me about it. And they were so sweet and so kind and understanding. And I don't know, I know bad things happen all the time. And this is so minor. I really do get that. But they treated me like it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And just the hugs, the comments that were made. People said things like, I know you have a hole in your heart right now. I know this is hard for you. I've been thinking about it. Two different women said they cried with me when they found out. And it just, don't ever take stuff
Comfort.
like that for granted. When you go to somebody and say something, even when it's really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, because
Mhm.
it meant the world to me. And
Yeah.
when I went home, I told Neil, if I ever wondered if I was loved,
Mhm.
this is a cow. But they knew how I felt, and they
Yeah.
took the time to come say something to me anyway. And it was just so sweet. And that was Sunday. And then Monday, Carl or Emily texted and said, can we come over and visit for a few minutes? And so they brought their family over and they brought dinner and, to cheer me up. And that was sweet and
Mhm.
thoughtful. And
Yeah.
I've received some texts. Oh, and then Tuesday, Holly Bauman texted, could she swing by? And she made me some
Oh.
homemade cinnamon pretzels.
Oh man. Oh,
Yeah, because those are my
that
favorites. So she and her daughters made me a homemade card, and you know, just just the whole thing, making it, delivering it. I just,
cinnamon pretzels. I'm
yeah,
intrigued. Are they
delicious.
soft?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh.
like I love that. Is it Annie Ann's or Aunt Annie's? I never
Mm-hmm.
can remember the
Andy
name of
Ann's.
that store. I love their cinnamon
Yeah.
pretzels, especially when they're hot and fresh. And so she made me some from scratch and delivered them. And anyway, it was just very sweet. It's just,
Yeah.
when your heart's kind of like, blah.
Yeah.
And
Well, even though
just,
there are things harder in life, it doesn't mean that what you're going through isn't hard. It's just not, it's not a tragedy, but it's a loss and it's a change. And
yeah.
so it's
Well,
still,
the same that the weekend leading up to that, we had, I'm not going to share what it was, but we had some sad personal family news. And I think it was
mm.
just kind of compounded,
Yeah.
and that really is a big deal, the
Yeah.
personal family stuff. And so it was, it wasn't a great week, but at the same time, seeing the goodness of God's people
Hmm.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
I really was so thankful and touched, and it meant a lot. And it was kind of renewed the idea in me that if you have a thought like that, follow through with it. Because I
Yeah.
probably would have had, oh, I should probably go say something to them, and then maybe not follow through with it, or,
Hmm. Yeah.
but it really meant a lot. It
Yeah.
made a difference.
Good. Well, I know that you're not necessarily finished grieving with it. I know that you're still sad about it, but I'm sure that good things will happen as a result of whatever.
Yeah. I think I said this to you before we hit record that I didn't realize how often I looked out the windows. Good grief.
Hmm.
Our house is full of windows, but every time I see one facing the back pasture or the side pasture, I always look out and I'm trying to find peaches, and even
Yeah.
upstairs, our bathroom window faces the back pasture. And I catch myself just walking over there and looking out, like trying to locate her and see her. I didn't realize
Hmm.
that. Apparently, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And there's all these reminders, the glass picture of peaches that Christy made is hanging
Yeah.
in my kitchen window. And Janelle got us a big sign that says dairy, and that's hanging in our laundry room. It's the first thing we see when we walk in. I just have things like that everywhere.
Yeah.
And my news feed is filled with it because I follow all these Jersey cow groups and homesteading groups. And so there are constant reminders, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks. All right. On a different note, we're having our ladies retreat this weekend. So by the time this airs on Monday, it'll be over. But my sister is speaking,
Hmm.
and it is, what are we calling it? Removing the mask. So I'm really excited about the topic, and it's about those kind of internal battles that we all deal with in some form or another, but don't necessarily share with anybody else. You just kind of show up, hey, how are you? Fine. How are you?
Right.
Fine.
Hmm.
So should be a really good topic, and I'm
So it's
looking forward
about
to
being
it.
real instead of being fake,
Exactly.
sort of.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Good. I
So,
wish I could be there.
mhm. Yeah, I wanted
Well,
to share the graphic and the stuff, but it's really more of an in-house thing. I mean, a couple
hmm
people might bring their mom or something, but it's not really,
yeah.
we
It's
do
not an
that.
outreach.
It's not really, yeah, this is more of our church family one,
Yeah.
but
Is it at Big Reedy?
usually it is, but there is a scheduling conflict, so it's going to be at the church building.
Okay. So it's a retreat. Will you just sleep at home?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be there Friday night. We're having catered lessons, games, stuff like that. Everybody will go home, come back Saturday morning.
Hmm.
So
I prefer that.
I do too. I wasn't sad about it.
Yeah. We're having a ladies' retreat. Drippin is in May, and we're going to
Mhm.
go to a place not far from here. And it's more like a hotel, which I'm okay with. But, you know, I'm I am a homebody and I don't get to be home all the time. And so when I can, I prefer sleeping at home. But there's a lot of people that would prefer they enjoy the, for lack of a better word, the party aspect of,
Yeah,
the overnight and slumber party kind of thing.
yeah. Staying up late in your pajamas,
Yeah.
hanging out, and I enjoy that too. It's the going to the bunk part that
Yeah.
I cannot sleep at all
Hmm.
anymore. So
Yeah. It's
yeah.
like the retreats that Bear Valley does sometimes, and you end up maybe on a top bunk.
Mhm.
If I have to get off, like climb down a ladder in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom 2 or 3 times, then I'm just not going to sleep any. It's just
Yeah.
that's just not fun to me, but
No.
I'll do it. And
Mhm.
it's okay. I can handle anything for a night or two,
Mhm.
but that's kind of good that you're going to be at home. So
Yeah.
this rodeo that we went to, I've been to rodeos before, been to the National Western in Denver and been to different ones here and
With
there.
your tiny little grandbaby on one of
But
the horses?
no, I was not at all prepared for how I was going to feel. I wasn't, I mean, she's riding a horse, which I mean, he's a big horse. She's a big horse. And there's other people at other horses in the arena. I just didn't think at all about how nerve-wracking it would be. Well, so a few days before, Jordan and I had this conversation via text, and he had expressed a little worry because not a little, quite a bit, because she the night before at a dress, not one a dress rehearsal, just at practice, two different girls that he said there was something in the air, and two different girls fell off their horses, one of them twice.
Mhm.
And then Missy, that's Emmy's horse, got spooked by something and bucked a couple times. And Emmy has been taught to drop the flag if the horse does anything like that, because the flags I haven't already spoken about this on
I've
the
heard this, but I didn't know if it was just you and me or if it was on the podcast. I don't know.
Well, we haven't recorded since this happened. So maybe
So
it
it
was
was
just you and me
just,
talking.
yeah.
Anyway, the flag wouldn't fall and it
Mm.
kept, it stuck in that flag holder and Missy bucked and Emmy held on and she didn't fall off. And Jordan said she was unfazed. She went back to her spot, but it was just enough to make them think, she's 7. Is she too young for this? Are we making the right decision? Are we pushing her? She loves doing it. It's not that she doesn't want to do it.
Hmm.
So that was on my mind. And it was 3 nights.
Oh
If
man.
it was just one time, but it was 3 nights. And it was like a 9-minute routine where, they come in the arena, they ride around, they're trotting, and it seems kind of silly. If I didn't have a granddaughter, I would look at that and go, what is the big deal? It's just a little routine on horses. But when you start thinking about if something like that happened again around all these other horses and they're in pretty tight formation, what would those other horses do? And just her little bitty body if it was on the ground and there's horses, so the whole
Hmm.
time. And of course, Aaron's there and Aaron's mom and I are sitting there chewing our nails the whole time. But it's like she's 7, but it's like she turns into a different child when she's on the horse, which is neat to see that she figures out the problems and corrects them. And so it was nerve-wracking, but it was fun too. And
Hmm.
Clara, she was in the stick horse race each night, which was hilarious. I think they use it as a fundraiser because they sell stick horses there. And you've got this lineup of 60 kids out in the arena. And, some of them are 2 barely walking and others are more like Clara's age, but they're falling and they're, getting up with dirt all over them, or they're very serious about it, which Clara is very serious about it. So that was fun. And Jackson did mutton busting and, it's just the fun atmosphere, very patriotic, and we enjoyed it. It was a lot of
Hmm.
busy work too. Jordan and Aaron were busy the whole time and painting the horse, and it's just a different world that I don't know anything about. So
Yeah.
it was exciting to be there and exhausting too.
Yeah. I can understand about it being nerve wracking, but I just keep thinking, wow, what an incredible growing up experience,
Yeah.
that whatever she pursues, to have had something like this in her life from such a young age, and the
Mhm.
skills and the discipline and the
Right.
bravery, the courage, all the things that it
Mhm.
takes for her to be able to do what she's doing. That's
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
People who have horses I've heard so many of them say there's so many lessons you learn on the back of a horse.
Hmm.
Just taking care of them and the relationship between her and her horse is really something pretty
Hmm.
incredible for a 7-year-old. I just wouldn't have thought it, but it really has shown me a different side of Emmy and
Yeah.
a different side of the whole farm world and horsing and stuff. Horsing, is that a word?
Horsing around.
Yeah. So it was fun. I
Very cool.
also wanted to tell you my daughter-in-law Alyssa's comment about what happened with Hiram. She teases me because sometimes I watch Wheel of Fortune, and apparently that is an old person thing to do.
I think it is too.
And honestly, I don't turn it on, but it comes on after the news, because we'll
Mhm.
have the 6 o'clock news on, and then it comes on after that. And so she texted me after that podcast came out, and all she said was, that FaceTime call in your jammies was very Wheel of Fortune of you. So, yes, I admit that it was an old lady thing to do, and I'm just proving myself older and older all the time.
Watching the news is an old lady thing to do.
Hey, I'm just trying to keep up on current events.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Alyssa's
Yeah,
hilarious.
she is. She's funny. So, what else is going on over there? What is going on with the flooding?
Uh,
Is it
it,
still raining?
it's not still raining. It stopped raining Sunday, I think was our last day. We've got some more cold weather and stuff coming. We've had a couple of really beautiful days. We've got some more kind of gnarly weather coming, and the tornado forecast for March doesn't look good.
Ooh,
But I don't know. It was just I really don't understand what happened, but they predicted it and said that it was going to be historic flooding.
wow.
And And so they kind of had everybody prepare for it ahead of time, and they were not joking. I mean, there are fields all around us that you can't even see anymore. They're just completely flooded over. And some of them you can tell that there were fence posts there, but you could only see the very tops of the fence
Wow.
posts. And, we have rivers around us that overflowed. And so, but I was kind of grumbling about our basement situation, but I also know people that live in Pikeville, Kentucky that had
Yeah.
it way worse, and some of them, like we had rainwater coming into our basement. They had river water flooding their
Mm,
homes to where only the rooftops were
yeah.
showing on their homes. So
Mm,
when you see stuff like that, you realize, you can't really complain about a few inches in your basement. So
yeah. It's an inconvenience, but not a tragedy.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Anyway,
Well, I'm
but
sorry about that.
that's okay. It's okay. Is there anything else you want to share before we get into our topic? Let me see. I jotted some things down. Let me see. No.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So we're going to have another book talk, and we're each just going to share a few books that maybe we've seen or read recently. I was telling you on the front end, none of mine are really deep or like literature
We're not
heavy
all going to
or
go, oh, Kathy, you're
yeah,
so
this is not going to be any
scholarly.
kind. So if you are so excited because you're very bookish, this might not be what you're expecting.
Yeah.
Literally, these are just a few things that I have picked up or been given in the past, well, really since the last time we did this, which was 2 years ago, and
Hmm.
that I really liked and appreciated. And so I'm going to share them, but none of them are like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
me either. Me
okay,
either.
good. Do you want to go first?
I can.
Okay.
All right, just pulling off the top of the list. My first one is called In the Shofar Blue. If you're
Mhm.
watching, you can see it. It's another one by Francine Rivers. Excuse me. And this one, I feel like anyone in ministry could benefit from reading this, and really anyone would be. It's a good book for anyone to read, but if you're in ministry, especially, it's about a man and his wife. His name is Paul. Her name is Eunice, and there's a lot of play on the names in this book because there's a David. I think there's a Lois. There's the biblical names in here,
Mhm.
but Paul is a preacher. Of course, there's denominational language in pastor and things like that, but he is a preacher. His father is a very quote successful televangelist, quote pastor of a big huge church somewhere. And so he kind of grew up in the shadow of his father, and he thinks that he kind of has to do the same thing. And so he goes to a new small congregation and wants to grow it. And the story is about him kind of moving away from the reason why you want to grow a church and the souls in it and the salvation found in Jesus, as opposed to just growing in numbers, being successful from a worldly standpoint, and then the tension between he and his wife, because his wife keeps trying to draw him back to the real reason that he's preaching is to draw people to Jesus. He's instead just being more impressed by numbers and money and being
Mhm.
able to have a bigger building and all those kind of
Mhm.
things, and how they're influenced by the people around them. And it's been quite a number of years since I've read it, but both of them, both Paul and Eunice, experience temptation, and one gives in and one does not. But it just shakes them because they thought that they were immune to that kind of thing. And it's a good book to consider what it is about ministry, that why are you in it, and what is your goal, and what might you be tempted by, as far as your motivation, and how would you prove yourself to others, as it like, okay, so we grew 10% over the last year. Of course, that's a good sign if you have more membership, but what is it that drew them there? And so there was a quote in there that I liked. It just said that his ego outgrew his devotion to God.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
That's good.
anything she writes, I have always enjoyed may not be the right word, although I think I've enjoyed all of them. But I've always learned from her books. And this one is something that I've recommended for women in the Preacher's Wives programs that we've been part of, just to kind of give them an idea of what might happen if you don't keep your focus on the right thing and if you don't keep um, keep your eyes on God instead of on your own prideful self. Make sure that you have the right motivation. So,
Well, I've heard you mention that before, and I think it was in the Bear Valley classroom, but coincidentally, it was either yesterday morning or just this morning, I ran across a quote, and the source was Francine Rivers, and it was that book.
really,
And yeah, and the reason it stuck in my mind is because when I saw that, I thought, oh, I still haven't read that book.
mm-hmm.
And, really haven't given it a thought ever. And then I just happened to run across a quote from that book, and then
Mm-hmm.
you just mentioned it today.
Yeah,
So
maybe you should read it.
it's a sign. It's a sign.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of ministry, I'm gonna backtrack here a little bit. We probably should have mentioned the roundtable,
Oh, yeah.
The Preacher's Wife, because it is about to release.
Mm-hmm.
What's the exact date?
March 3rd.
So will it already be out when this airs?
Yes, because
Does it
I
air the
know,
day this airs?
yeah, Monday is March the
Okay,
3rd.
so today,
Mm-hmm.
today, the roundtable, The Preacher's Wife, is available. And what all did Garrett say? Okay, so it's
2 episodes you can watch for free,
okay,
and they
so
come out immediately.
the first two episodes come out at the same time. They're free, and then after that, it'll be
One per week, I believe.
once a week. But you have to have the app to be
You have
able
to
to
have a
view those. Is that
subscription to Excel TV.
okay?
And I think it's $4.99 a month, or you can pay for a year in advance and get 2 months free. But
Mhm.
um,
And we also have the topics and the order in which they'll be released, so we can
mhm.
share all of that in the Looking Up group
Yeah, the 2 free ones
next
that you
week.
can watch. The first one is on spiritual growth.
Mhm.
The second one is called Perceptions, perceptions about preachers' families, preachers' wives. And then the third is balance. The fourth is struggles. The fifth is friendships. The sixth is family and expectations. And the seventh is personal journeys. So
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot.
Mhm. I did too until you said something about what it's like to be in ministry, and I was like, "Ooh,
Hmm.
I can't
Yeah.
believe we didn't mention that."
Yeah.
Okay, good one. My first one, I should have put these closer to me. My first one is a cookbook. I believe you have a
Yeah.
copy of this
Uh-huh.
also. This is called Satisfied by Amy Hannon, and Hillary Hammer gave me this book for Christmas. And first of all, visually, it's just beautiful. It is
Hmm.
a gorgeous cookbook. And it's one of those, I read cookbooks like novels anyway, cover to cover, but this one is very well written. And the reason, first of all, look at the inside of that. Isn't that a pretty
Yeah.
pattern?
Looks
That
like
blue and
pretty
white.
wallpaper.
Oh, it's so pretty. But when she starts out telling her story, I was hooked from the very beginning because she's really big on hospitality. And she says, I'll just read a couple of snippets from her introduction. She said, what comes with being a people person is an awareness that people have a lot of emotional and relational needs, physical and spiritual needs. And she talks about the best way to learn about those is to have people at your table. And that way you can encourage them and cheer for them and show them the hope of Jesus, the kindness of a loving God. And she gathers people around food in God glorifying fellowship. To give people food is a reminder that He treasures them and will provide, to love deeply, welcome gladly, and serve faithfully, one shared meal at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's her premise.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, when you go through, there's a lot of beautiful
Yeah.
photography and a lot of great recipes. And I will say, look, this one's called Tender Shredded Chicken for All the Things. I will say that Travis Harrison was looking for ideas for his wife for Christmas, and I recommended this book, and it was already like sold out and
Oh, wow.
unavailable at that point. So I don't know if it's restocked because that was the holidays. And so I'm thankful to have a copy, but I still wanted to include this one uh, because I think it's wonderful. I mean, even that front, like one of my all-time
Yeah.
favorite meals is a roasted chicken in a cast iron skillet, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
she featured
I
on the
just want to
front
get a
cover.
fork and like start
Yes,
digging in.
yes. So
Uh,
that's
so
my first one.
was there a secret to the tender chicken for all the things, or is that a recipe?
closed the book on that one.
Okay. Well,
Oh, here it is. It is, she said this is one of those, I'm gonna tell you how to do it without a real recipe. She batch cooks chicken, a big flat of 7 or 8 breasts, and then shreds it up and puts it in 2 cup handfuls in quart-sized freezer bags. So she has shredded chicken that thaws quickly and can be added to recipes.
so she boils it or bakes it or
Yeah, she
roasts it.
does. She trims them, puts them in a pot, fills it with cold water, adds salt, brings to a boil, simmers it for an hour or longer, then removes it and shreds it and then freezes it.
Yeah.
She
Sounds good.
says 1 chicken breast yields a generous cup of shredded chicken.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's
Good
just
to
one
know.
of her little like helpful hints kind of
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah. Well, I wondered if Hillary knew that person or, if there was something special
Oh,
about it that
I
she,
don't know. Hmm. If
yeah,
she
because,
she may have said something about it and I just forgot. But the subtitle is Savories and Sweets That Feed Belly and Soul. So we all need that.
yeah, I don't need any more belly, but feed my belly.
That's right.
Okay. My next one you've heard me talk about before is Paul, a
Mhm.
novel. And I know that I always say this, I always kind of feel bad about bringing things up that I've already said things about, but not everybody remembers everything I say. And not everybody listens to every podcast. So I'm going to bring it up again. Walter Wangren Jr. is the author, and he has written one about Jesus, which was on my last book talk. And then he wrote one called The Book of God, which is the story of the Bible, and it's in chronological order, from creation. Can't remember how far it goes. I guess through New Testament times, but that's been a while since I read it. But this one, excuse me, I've got a frog today, follows the story of Paul the Apostle from the road to Damascus. That's where it starts. And, it just describes what it must have felt like. It's from his perspective. Each chapter gives, so like chapter 20, it says Luke. It's from Luke's perspective and it's first person. Chapter 42 is Timothy. But I had picked it up again and it's not on Kindle. It's not an ebook. I couldn't find it in an ebook, which I prefer because I can make it bigger. So I read it in tiny print this last year before we went to Turkey and Greece because I knew we were going to go to Corinth and I just had remembered the time I read it before that it described a lot of things about those areas. And I just wanted to be able to kind of see these things while we were there. But it's, there's bones you have to spit out, like with any book. There's some teaching that it's not teaching, but it will teach you, I guess, if you let it, things that are not in the Bible. Of course, it's a novelized account, and that also is not in scripture. It's like The Chosen. It adds to in a way that helps you to see what it might have been like. But it gave such depth and color and character to Paul, and not just to Paul, but to Timothy and to Luke and to, um, I always want to say Ananias and Sapphira, but not Ananias and Sapphira, Aquila and Priscilla. So do that every single time. And how they got acquainted. And there's even the character, um, not Sosthenes, but Erastus. So in Corinth, there is a stone on the ground, embedded in the ground, that has Erastus's name on it. And they really do think it's from the Erastus that is found in the Bible, somewhere in Acts. I can't remember exactly where it was, that he was a town, had something to do with the finances of the town. And he is a huge character throughout the book. It starts him out as being very anti-Christianity, but Paul befriends him, and how that happens is really cool. And he becomes a Christian, and he's one of the greatest advocates for Christianity. It goes back and forth to Jerusalem and James, the brother of Jesus, as one of the elders at the church in Jerusalem, and the traditionalists there. And it's just I loved the book. And it's not necessarily an easy book. And I like easy books, but I also like to be challenged too. So, because he writes like they write, like they would have spoken, and some of the just the I say, I don't know, that's how they would have talked, but I imagine that's how they would have talked. Anyway, it's just a really, really good book. And I really recommend all of the good parts about the book. If there's anything bad, wrong, I don't recommend that, but I do think that this is very much worth reading to see catch a glimpse of life in the first century.
Well, both of yours were kind of deeper. Your books.
Still fiction.
They are still fiction, but they're like especially your first one, that's pretty heavy stuff.
Well, it sounds like it, but it really isn't. If it's a story, I mean, it helps you to think about not becoming that way. So, no.
Well, as a foil to your more serious ones, my next one
Wait
is
till you hear my next one.
How to Be a Wildflower.
Ah, how cute.
Well, if you recognize the artwork, anybody who likes the Katie Daisy planners like I do, that's my favorite kind. It's the same author, so it's the same kind of artwork, and it's that way all the way through. I mean, every page is visually beautiful and appealing, and lots of color, lots of kind of watercolor and whimsy, and so she calls it a field guide, but I would say it's more a lightweight. It's a very whimsical field guide. It's more of a la la la,
yeah,
not as serious. I'm all in there and wanting to learn about nature kind of a field guide, but more to have just enjoy nature and to see things around you and appreciate the beauty and appreciate the art and appreciate the simplicity of it. So my sister gave me this one and she included this pretty little bookmark, which matches.
Yeah.
So there's things in here like keep chickens. There's a little page
I would want to
there.
frame something like that.
There's a little page in there on keeping chickens. There's a section called Savor. So they're making a lavender simple syrup. It's the sweet, simple things of life, which are the real ones after all. That's a Laura Ingalls Wilder quote. Eat berries straight from the vine. It's just a bunch of cute little, here's the different sounds that birds make. It's
so pretty.
It's just adorable. And if you're ever just having a gray day or a blah day, just pull this book out and read a couple of pages, or step outside with it and do a couple of things that it says. And it's just sweet. It's beautiful and sweet. How to Be a Wildflower, a field guide by Katie Daisy.
I like beautiful and sweet.
I do too.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah. Next.
All right. My next one is, and I don't have the actual book. I thought I had one more. I bought several and then I've given them away. I think I sent one in your Christmas package. It's called Do Unto Otters. It's a kid's book. Love that book. The author, I'll have to find it in a minute, but here's the synopsis. It says, Mr. Rabbit's new neighbors are otters. Otters? But he doesn't know anything about otters. Will they get along? Will they be friends? Just treat otters the way you'd like them to treat you, advises Mr. Owl. And it's Laurie Keller. In her smart, playful style, Laurie Keller highlights how to be a good friend and neighbor. Simply follow the golden rule. So it's a play on words throughout the whole books. Do unto others. It's do unto otters. And it's just the cutest little book. And it's the pictures on the pages, there's different. It's not like a whole page of one picture, but there's little scenes and little things to look at. And my grandkids just love it because when you're reading to them, you can look at their little faces and their eyes are going from one picture to another and just absorbing the colors and the fun sounds that they make. And it's just that's my current favorite kids book is Do Unto Otters by Laurie Keller. Wish I had one to show.
It is cute. I have it, but it's in the other room. But I read it to Rich and I was highly entertained. Rich it was a little young to pick up the play on words, with the Do Unto Otters, but I was cracking up. So
yeah.
But it's really cute. Yeah, it's a good one.
Good. Okay.
All right. So my next one, interestingly, I don't have a copy to show you either. And I debated on whether or not to bring this up because I'm going way back into my past, but it's just one of those books that I read as a teenager and it just stuck with me all this time. Every now and then I still think about it. And it was called Gypsy Secret. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's by
Mm.
Florence Crane. Yeah, Florence Crane. It was written in 1957.
Okay.
And it's basically about this. It's a young girl. One side of her parentage came from that gypsy lifestyle, the caravan, the whole kind of thing. And so her mother ends up dying. And I can't remember now exactly, even if she and her father went to go stay with his side of the family or her side of the family, but whichever side it was, they really looked down their nose on that kind of heritage. And
Mm-hmm.
so she feels all of that and has a lot to overcome. And it's kind of learning to overcome people's prejudices and, build reforming relationships and families and forgiveness and all. Well, anyway, from what I remember in my immature teen years, it was a great story, Gypsy Secret. But what stood out to me was in the book, the main character's favorite psalm was Psalm 121.
Hmm.
And so she quotes it in the book more than once. And I don't even remember exactly what's happening, but this scene stands out in my mind of she's using an ironing board and she's pressing something for her grandmother. And she's, sad and heartbroken about something. And she's quoting that in her mind, I will lift up mine eyes into the hills from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord. And from that moment on, I kind of adopted Psalm 121 as my favorite psalm also.
Hmm.
And it has been ever since.
Yeah.
I like that one in Psalm 18, but it goes clear back to just this little fiction book that I read
Mm-hmm.
one time.
Yeah.
And I can still see the cover in my mind. It was just a real simple design, like a silhouette, more of a girl with a long skirt. And I don't
Is it
remember
still
all
in
the,
print?
no,
Hmm.
no, you can. I just looked for it this past week to see if I could even find a copy. And it seems like there's a couple of copies floating around out there that aren't even in great condition.
Yeah.
So, but so yeah, that's why I debated on whether or not to even bring it up because I don't know that you could even find it and actually read it for yourself. I more just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to share the fact that
Yeah.
books can really make an impact on you.
Mm-hmm.
And that story has always stuck with me. That psalm, I'm sure I had read it before then since I was already a teenager, but just reading it in that storyline and how she used it stuck with me and became my favorite psalm and has been to this day. So we're talking 30 plus years. Yeah, well over 30 plus years since
Yeah.
I've read this book and it still stuck with me.
Hmm. That's fun.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
something that you checked out at the library?
Yeah,
Okay.
probably. I must have. Hmm.
Yeah. I thought about there's a shelf on my bookcase back here, which by the way, the plants are in because it was cold last week. Um, but there's a particular author named Rosamond du Jardin. Don't know if I'm saying it right, but she had a shelf at the library when I was in junior high or high school. And I checked hers out over and over and over and over again. And they were not anything deep. I mean, it didn't even I don't have a good story like remembering a psalm from it, but I just liked her storytelling. And she would have little series. There was well, I don't know why I'm even telling this because these aren't what I'm going to talk about, but uh, there was a set that had twins, Pam and Penny. And I thought that was fascinating. I always wanted to be a twin. And then a series about a girl named Marcy. But, just it's funny the things that you remember about
Hmm.
when you were younger and reading. And also, my dad in his office had tons of the Reader's Digest condensed books. Did you ever
Hmm.
read those?
I did. Hmm.
I would sit on his floor and just that's what I would if I would go to work with him, I would sit and read one
Hmm.
of the books out of the Reader's Digest condensed books. They were always clean and
Hmm.
interesting. And so I think that that is part of the reason why I learned to love to read, just doing
I
things like
even
that.
collected those when we were first
Mhm.
married because they look so grown up. I
Yeah.
was 20 years old and I thought they looked all fancy and I wanted them on
Hmm.
my bookshelf. And
Yeah.
so for the longest time, I had quite a collection of those things. And
Hmm.
somewhere along the way, I donated them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember reading the Bobbsey twins, Nancy
Hmm.
Drew.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, it's fun to. Fun to think back. Now it's like,
Trixie Belden. Did you ever read Trixie Belden?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I do
She
wonder
was,
though, like Gypsy Secret, I remember loving it then. I wonder how I would feel about it now. You know how when there were TV shows that you loved as a
yeah.
child, and then you watch it now and you think,
What was I thinking?
what? What in the world?
Hmm.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. What's your third one?
Okay.
Or fourth one? Your
Third.
fourth one.
No, I've only done two. Because that was my last, what I was just talking about was a commentary on yours. I have Paul. Oh, that's right. Do unto otters. Okay. I was looking at my stack.
I didn't want to correct you again, so.
I could tell by your eyes that you were, though. Okay. Here's one from teen years. It's called The Bronze Bow
Oh, yes.
by
Lois
Elizabeth
and I
George
read that.
Spear. Yeah.
Mhm.
So this one is, and it's been so long since I've read it that I had to kind of look at a synopsis to remember. But it's about a young boy who grows up. His father is killed by Roman soldiers. He's a Jewish boy, and he starts being impacted or influenced by zealots who want to fight against the Romans, and just that misconception of what Israel was looking for in a Messiah. So many of the people thought that the Messiah was coming to save them from the Romans and to help them escape Roman rule. But he encounters Jesus, and a few people around him encounter Jesus. And so he grows to understand that it's not about escaping things here on earth. The Roman, even though Romans were cruel to Jews, but that wasn't what the Messiah was coming for. And so it's this is the next one I think I want to read with Jackson when we have time, because I think he's ready for it. But it's pretty lengthy, and it's pretty deep for a child, but yet I think it's one of those that if you read and kind of talk about it along the way, they'll understand more, because I think it's a pretty formative thing to understand, helps you to understand that why did the Jews reject so many of the Jews reject Jesus, and why do some of them still today not believe that he was who he said he was. And so it's a great entertaining book, but it's a learning book too. So The Bronze Bow, Elizabeth George Spear. She's the author of The Witch of Blackbird Pond, and this was a Newbery Award winning book also. So
Mhm. See, there you go again. You're recommending a book with a seal on the front. So now Jackson's 8, right?
yeah,
So when you read to him, is it like in the day, just sitting on the couch, or is it at night before he goes to
at
sleep,
night.
or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just go in
It's
there and read a chapter or two or
oh,
something?
it's my favorite thing because I can see the wheels turning in his mind. He's a thinker, and um, in fact, when we were there for the rodeo, he had brought home a Secrets of World War II library book, and he wanted me to read that to him. And so I was learning things from that book, because I didn't
You're like, really? How
like,
about
yeah,
something
I
else?
didn't know that. I didn't know that. So then John got involved because I wanted John to explain the what was the code breakers that back in World War II,
Oh
the
yeah.
Navajo, the Wind Talkers, I think is what they called. And this book brought them up. And so then John came in, and then they started having diagrams on the floor with marbles and army men about flanks and army, and so I was gone after that because they were playing army, and I was just wanting to talk about the book.
Oh,
Anyway, it was fun.
that is so great.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so my next one is a children's book. It's my big
Hey.
truck book. Now,
Uh-huh.
I mentioned this on a recent episode, may have been our last one, and I said this was a mommy markdown
Yeah.
purchase, but I was wrong. It was not.
Okay.
I got an email from an author, Tamara Alexander,
Mm-hmm.
because I read all of her books, and she has a grandson about the same age as Rich. So they had their first grandson about the same time we did.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she was talking about how she had ordered this book. She's not affiliated in any way or anything like that, but her grandson just could not get enough of it. And
Yeah.
so she shared the link. I ordered it the same day, and I never said anything about it to Rich. I just set it over there with all the other books.
Mm-hmm.
But the very next time he came over, I kid you not, I heard him gasp and I heard him start running down the hallway. And I thought, what? And then he comes back and he's holding this book and hands it
Hmm.
to me and climbs up in my lap. And I'm like, well, alrighty then. So we
Yeah.
went through, it's a big board book.
Yeah.
So we went through and read every single page and looked at every single tractor and truck and picture and talked about it. And it has little questions, which farm truck has a black bucket? How do you
Did he have his
climb?
little overalls on when he was reading?
I don't think he did that day. How do you climb into this tall tractor? And we had to read it 3 times in a row.
Hmm.
So, and it's kind of funny because I have some other books that I'll say, come on, let's read a book, and I'll start it, and he'll be interested for about 2 pages.
Hmm.
And then he's climbing down because he's a mover. He wants to
Yeah.
be outside, he wants to be doing things. But this book, he
Captured
just
his
sat
attention.
there. When we finished it, he closed it and we started again. So it really is. She was right. It's just my big truck book, but
Okay. I'm gonna have to get that
it
one. Nolan will like that.
it's it quickly became a favorite.
Good.
Mhm.
All right. We're doing five, right?
Yes.
Okay. This I debated doing this because this isn't one that you can get. Although I could probably help you out with some of it. You have it,
Oh.
but it's a cookbook. It's
Oh
the one that we
yes.
did. It's called Dripping with Taste. I put mine in a binder because it was kind of starting to come apart. But this is the one that the Dripping Springs women put together when you came and did a ladies' day, which was more than 10 years ago.
I think it was about 10 years ago.
Okay. So Nicole Bonnet, I had her design the cover and I thought it was so pretty. She's an artist and she made it so pretty. But it's just it's the one, it always goes with me to Denver. And of course I've got folded up things stuck in here. These are my, the ones that you collect off the internet and then you print them off, or at least I do, and stash them somewhere. This is where they go. But it's just fun when you have a cookbook that the people who recommend, and it's always going to be their favorite recipes. So there's things in here that I have made, the homemade pancakes that my Lori Simonetti, she's Courtney's mom, so Micah's mother-in-law, her homemade buttermilk pancakes, which are the best pancakes I've ever had.
Oh, wow.
There's recipes from women who've passed on, and so it makes me smile. It makes me remember being in their home when they made these things. Corn and cheese chowder by Mary Williams, hearty potatoes by Wesley Wilkes, and there's recipes by people who aren't here anymore. They've moved. There's a bunch of recipes from my mom. There's recipes in here from you. One of them is the puff corn. I
Mhm.
can't remember the other because you submitted a couple of them. There's one that's called the Joyful Quilter's Chicken Casserole that my friend Tracy Wright put in here because there was a group of quilters. We would go for a quilting retreat occasionally, and this is what we would always bring on that retreat. Ruth Locke's chocolate sheet cake. I've mentioned Ruth Locke multiple times, and it's the Texas sheet cake. I make it all the time, but it's so it didn't originate with her. But anyway, it's just, if there's, I think I might still have the computer file and maybe I could share it, but these are the best cookbooks, the ones that the people that have submitted and they
Mhm.
have given their best recipes, the ones that are their favorites, and there's just memories attached. So,
Mhm.
like I said,
Yeah,
I
those
debated it because it's not one you can buy, but that was,
well, but what you could do is maybe, I mean, I don't know if you'll share the PDF file or whatever, but what you could do maybe throughout next week is to be share, a couple of your favorite recipes.
yeah,
And I always pull that one out when I'm making your lasagna soup.
yeah, that's right. I put that recipe in there.
Because that recipe's in there. And
Mhm.
when I pull out that book, that's the one I'm making. It's a
Yeah,
pretty regular feature.
yeah, it's a fun one.
It is. It's so good.
Okay,
All right. So my last one is this book called At Your Best.
okay.
It's by Carrie Nieuwhof, Nieuwhof.
I bet she spent her life spelling
I
her
think
name for
it's a,
people.
I think it's a he, but maybe not.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, it's how to get time, energy, and priorities working in your favor. And this one was recommended at this year's Focal Point. Neil sat in a class by, I think it was John Baker,
Okay.
who first referenced this book. and Neil ordered it on the spot. And then he was talking to Mike Vestal about it afterwards. And I think Mike Vestal said that he's the one that recommended it to John Baker. So,
Okay.
two good endorsements there anyway. But just it sounds like one of those that, when you read something, you're going, how can I just imprint that on my forehead for life? So that there's this constant reminder of it. It's that kind of practical kind of stuff. I highlighted a few things to share. He said, this is in the introduction. I'm guessing that most of your problems stem from having too much, not too little, too many demands, too many opportunities, too much information, too many distractions, too many choices, too many people vying for attention, and way too much stuff on the calendar. So,
yeah, for sure.
So anyway, as I'm reading it, I'm just like going, he's talking about me. And then, let me see, make sure I don't skip. I asked Neil if I could highlight in his book because I was using a pink highlighter. He said that was fine. Okay. I'm sorry. I should have marked these pages. I thought they would stand out quicker. He's got a chapter 2 called No More Crazy Busy Life. And he says that you always hear the advice to schedule in rest time and schedule in time off, take your vacation days, get away. He says we always hear that and it sounds like good advice, but he said time off won't heal you when the problem is how you spend your time on. Which I thought was very interesting. So he's got a whole chapter devoted to that. He said, you live with a constant sense of time famine. Your to-do list only seems to expand, and the gnawing sense of scarcity, as in there's never enough time, keeps growing. So if you ever feel that way, a mantra that he adopted is live in a way today that will help you thrive tomorrow. So that's kind of the premise of the whole book. He talks about something called margin, making sure you have margin in your life. Margin is space. It's room to breathe. It's so rare in our culture with every spare minute taken up with something. Technology hasn't helped us much in this respect. Margin is what you experienced when you were a kid, and your 6-week summer felt like a year or a decade feels today. It's what you had when you were so bored and your mom told you to find something to entertain yourself until dinner, and you rolled your eyes at how that felt like forever from now. Margin is when you used your $10 bill to buy all the candy and gum you wanted, and you still had $7.14 left over. Margin is the leftovers, the extra, the grace. And so he talks about how to get that back into your life, and then how to recalibrate when life throws you curveballs is a whole section. So even though you read some good and helpful things, life never goes according to plan. And you think, starting today, I'm going to implement all these things, and then life happens. So it's very good, very practical. Yes. Yeah. It's a one where you sit and read with your highlighter and maybe your spouse also.
Yeah, I need that.
At your best, Carrie Newhoff.
Is that there's a quote that says something about the devil works best in distraction and busyness. And I think that's the truth. If we don't have any of that margin. In fact, I think sometimes we think margin is wrong. We should always be busy, but man, I need some margin.
Yeah, and I think we think too that the antidote to that is to, say no to everything and cut everything out so that you're doing nothing. And it's not necessarily that you're laying around doing nothing. It's what is your schedule filled with, and what happens when your sense of purpose is swallowed up by all the urgent. And, it's to me, it's a big exercise in clarity, a schedule heart check kind of a thing. And when you do feel like there's never enough time, you can never catch up, you never get to do what you really want to do. It's that kind of book.
Yeah. Well, I'll put that on my list.
Okay, so good talk. yours were fancy, mine weren't. But
no,
that's okay.
They weren't fancy. Fancy would be, these long depths make you think, and none of they made you.
Yeah,
think
we will
in
probably never have an episode like that. Just so everybody knows. Not that will surprise. Not that will surprise anybody who has listened to any of our episodes.
Yeah, we're not deep like that.
Okay, do you have something good for us today?
I forgot all about that. So no, I don't. Sorry.
Okay, well, I do. I'm so excited about this one.
Okay, good.
So, for Valentine's Day, Joyce Johnson shared some treats with us that she had made. Okay. And I took a bite out of it, and Neil took a bite out of it. We just looked at each other and we're like, what is this magic that we are eating? It tasted like, I always get these mixed up. I always get the cookie and the little Debbie thing mixed up, but the
Nutty
nutter,
Buddy,
which one is that?
Nutter Butter. Nutter Butter's a cookie.
All
Nutter
right, not the
Nutty
cookie,
Buddy is Little
Nutty
Debbie.
Buddy, the thing that if you eat it right, you peel apart all the layers and eat them one at a time.
I don't know.
They're kind of chocolate. They're
Soft or
kind of
hard?
they're like a wafer dipped in
Okay.
chocolate with peanut butter in the
Yeah.
layers, kind of
Nutty
a
Buddy.
thing.
Hmm.
By Little Debbie. Okay, so it tasted just like those. And so I ended up texting her, "What is this?" And I knew it was similar to, you know how people take Ritz crackers and they spread peanut butter
Hmm.
in the middle and dip it in chocolate. I knew it was
Yes.
similar to that, but it tasted way better. And I said, "What are we eating? What is this?" And all she does is use wheat thins instead of Ritz crackers.
Peanut
And
butter, wheat thins,
some
and chocolate.
Yes. And something, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Something magical happens. It is, I could have eaten a bazillion of those things. Wheat thins, spread with a little peanut butter, sandwiched together. And I even asked her, I said, okay, so what kind of chocolate do you use? Well, she just buys that chocolate coating stuff that you just melt,
Yeah.
chocolate candy coating that
Hmm.
so simple, but I'm not kidding. It tastes just like that Nutty Buddy thing. It is so good. So good. So
So
easy.
they're like small, but there's
Yeah.
two crackers
Yeah. So a wheat thin, peanut butter, another wheat thin, sandwich it together, dip it in the chocolate,
submerged.
submerge it all in the chocolate.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay.
So
I will
good.
definitely try that.
Oh man.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of what
It's,
crackers I have in the pantry right now, and I think all I have is the garden vegetable toasties. That probably wouldn't have the same effect.
I don't think so.
Maybe the
If
same
you
crunch.
make this for your next finger foods or your next drop in on a shut in or for somebody that you're in love with and you're trying to get their attention for the
Okay.
unmarried people,
Okay.
and all your problems will be solved. I promise you.
Okay.
It is
Temporarily,
it
anyway.
is that good.
All right. Sounds
Thanks to
good.
Joyce Johnson for sharing that.
She's given us lots of good things.
She has. She's a cook.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Good
All
deal.
right. Well, I enjoyed this. I missed you. It was great to catch up and
Yeah.
have a book talk. That's always fun. I feel like I probably should have fixed a cup of hot tea or coffee or something for this conversation, but
Hmm.
then you'd hear me slurping. So
Just be more entertaining.
that's right. So, Carla, until next time,
Keep looking up.
have a great week and I love you, friend.
You too. I love you too. Bye.
Bye.